So what about on the defensive side of the ball that we saw do very well against Green Bay? Is there any particular matchups that you think the Eagles offense can expose on that Vikings defense game planning wise?
Dallas Goedert to me really sticks out. Looking at it, I mean, if you go back to the 2017 season, I guess in the playoffs when the Eagles played the Vikings in the NFC Championship game, a guy like Zach Ertz really exposed Harrison Smith badly. So I think if you can find a way to get a Dallas Goedert, who's eh, infinitely more athletic and more of a dynamic player than Zach Ertz, not the route runner that Zach is, but if you can get him isolated on a player like Harrison Smith, who isn't necessarily the most fluid player at this stage of his career, and make a guy like an Eric Kendricks play in space a little bit and test that. I think that the Eagles, and I think that's the way to go. I think the Eagles will be able to exploit that middle, that short to intermediary levels of the field. And also, I expect Jalen Hurts to be under siege based on what the Lions did as far as a blueprint and how to flush him out of the pocket and make him really win with his arm. I think you're going to see him have to dump the ball off quickly, which really lends itself favorably to Dallas Goedert and being that security blanket over the middle. And then I think also you could see him really threaten the seam there later in the game. So he would be my X factor. And I think that if you had to look at one area to exploit, that to me would be it.
We are talking to the Inside thebirds.com staff reporter, Andrew DiCecco. Now, Andrew, now watching what has happened to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East, and they're going to lose Dak Prescott for a significant amount of time. So a lot of people are taking Dallas out. Washington, they look good in game number one. They really did. But as they start to play the better teams with their schedule, very easy, as well as the Eagles and the Giants. And then the Giants showing up in game number one and surprising everybody, knocking off Tennessee. Where do you see the Eagles fitting in this division as what you've seen in game number one in week number one?
Well, especially now, given the injury to Dak Prescott, and you hope all the best for Dak. You hate to see that happen to any player. I think that the Eagles really are the front runners to win the NFC East, and if they were able to stay healthy, just given the firepower that they have offensively and the defense that I think is really going to start to come together in the next few weeks. I think they're really trying to build that cohesiveness, which we talked about in the beginning of the show. Just playing together. Remember, there's guys like James Bradbury. There's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was a late acquisition. You have a rookie in Nakobe Dean. All these different moving parts that are really trying to find their footing and find their roles, which I think will become more clear as we move forward. And I think that'll eventually catch up to the offense. But as far as what you see from, at the full scope of the NFC East, I really like what Washington has done. Right. Am I buying what Carson Wentz is selling? No, I've seen that story plenty of times. And he's a very spotty quarterback, a very streaky quarterback, and a lot of his awards will show at the most untimely moments. And I think that you're gonna see you're gonna see in one game you'll see the great side of Carson Wentz, and you'll see signs where you're like, is this guy a rookie, or you'll just be scratching your head. As far as what the Giants do, I was really intrigued with what they were going to do with Brian Dable. When I heard you mention Brian Dable before I came on, as far as the impact that he's made so far, his imprint on the Giants, and I think the team, it's fair to say, is really buying in to his philosophy. But I also think that Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, the newly minted offensive coordinator, is really adding some new flavor and some new juice and optimism to that team. And I'm really interested to see how he's able to integrate all these different guys, the Wan'Dale Robinson and Saquon Barkley looks like he's back. And of course they have Sterling Shepard, all these different guys. And I want to see how he's able to utilize them to the best of their ability. So I think that they just have a lot more energy and a lot more life to them than we've seen in recent years.
What was funny, you mentioned Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is still the only quarterback to ever be booed by artificial crowd noise. I give your fan base a lot of credit for that. It was funny. So I'm going to ask the question that's divided Eagles Twitter, Eagles fans in general. Howie Roseman, he's a very strange GM, done a lot of good things and a lot of really bad things. So where do you stand on him as a GM, just overall?
Well, and you know what? That's a very you're right. That's a very divisive. Howie's a very divisive person in terms of where the fans lie, journalists, we in the media lie, and you have to look at. I mean, you'd be remiss if you neglected to look at his misses, his downright whiffs in the draft. Looking at it, and this has been beaten to death and driven home. The J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the second round in 2019, Sharif Miller, when a guy like a Charles Omenihu was sitting there, and he ended up being a productive player in the rotation for Houston. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was on the board when DK Metcalf was still there. When Juan Thornhill, the safety who ended up going to the Chiefs, was still there. I mean, you can just go on and on and on about some of these whiffs. Jalen Reagor. So, but with all that said, he's been able to sort of mask some of these glaring decisions with timely trade or savvy trades and free agent acquisitions, right? But that's not the way to build a roster for the long term, right? That's not sustainable. So I think that he's going to. I mean, I think he needs a little bit. I mean, you have to hone in on some of his evaluation practices, and obviously the draft is not a strong suit. You can't continue to assemble a roster and construct it based on getting in outside help. You have to have some homegrown talent. And right now, the Eagles, talking last season, and it looks like he's sort of righted that, at least in the interim. He has the right people around him now, because I think that even Howie realizes that he needs a little bit of assistance when it comes to the evaluation standpoint and the draft process. And I think that he's taken those steps. And I think that you're seeing an Eagles roster that's really building themselves up and setting themselves up to be a force in the future.
We are talking to InsideTheBirds.com staff reporter Andrew DiCecco. Last question for me, Andrew. Jalen Hurts. A lot of people were questioning his talent going into the season as a quarterback. A lot of people thought, hey, you know what? If he fails this year, you have 2 first-round draft picks next year. The quarterback class next year is infinitely better than it was this year, as we all know. So what are your thoughts so far? I mean, in the preseason games, OTAs, and now in game number 1, do you think that Jalen Hurts is the answer to the Philadelphia Eagles, the quarterback that they've been craving for since you-know-who, Donovan McNabb? I followed him in Syracuse. That's why I am a second to Eagles fan, as everybody knows. I'm a Jet fan and an Eagles fan because of Donovan McNabb.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer your question, I do think that Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the future for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to tell you why. Jalen Hurts is a player who has continuously improved with every game and each rep and every season. The work ethic is never the question, right? He put in this offseason the work with Tom House, who, of course, has worked with Tom Brady. He's really attacked the offseason. He looks stronger, looks more explosive. His decision-making's improved. This is someone who realizes and recognizes that this is his season to really put his stamp on this position and be the quarterback of the future for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's not lost on Jalen. And he really attacked the offseason with a resolve, and he's really the team galvanized. Like he galvanizes the team. Like it's very rare that I've seen, like, not probably since even before McNabb, because I don't even think that McNabb was someone who really galvanized the locker room.
No,
certainly not. That just wasn't his makeup, right? Neither that was the same goes for Carson Wentz. Nick Foles was the only player I can think of in recent memory that had all 53 players buy in and really want to go out there and lay it all on the line for him. And that's because Jalen Hurts is a team first guy, but he's also someone that puts in the extra work and is a leader and finds a way to get it done. He's a winner.
I will say this. Donovan McNabb was their last franchise quarterback, because I didn't think Carson Wentz was. Every single quarterback they've had over the years, even with under Andy Reid, none of those guys really were that franchise quarterback. It wasn't since Donovan McNabb where you can honestly say they had a franchise quarterback, and maybe it is Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think that the Eagles have surrounded him with talent. They've tailored an offense to accentuate his skill set, which, I mean, Jalen Hurts really is the dual threat quarterback is really the wave of the future for the NFL. Mm-hmm. The pocket quarterback is been the prototypical. Everyone thinks that that's the prototypical quarterback, and you need to be a certain way to win at this level. But you're seeing guys like Josh Allen be able to affect the game with his legs just as much as his arm, and all these different guys, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Pat Mahomes, even just across the board. You need to have that secondary option when things aren't going your way. And I think that he is an X factor, and he gives the Eagles a chance to win every week. And I think you're going to see him continuously improve throughout the season, because that's what we've seen. I mean, we're going off of what we've seen, and that's what Jalen Hurts has shown throughout his tenure as a starter.
So you mentioned that the Eagles should probably safely make the playoffs now with the NFC East woes with the other teams. But in the playoffs, who do you think would be the biggest threat to the Eagles matchup-wise in the NFC?
Minnesota. Minnesota, definitely. I just think that defensively, offensively, it's going to be a slugfest. And it wouldn't surprise me if this is a high-scoring affair on Monday night. I just think that both teams are really equipped for the long haul, and I think that they're going to meet again. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings poses the biggest threat for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Andrew, really appreciate your time as always, and we would love to get you back on as the season progressively moves forward. And I would love to see where the Eagles lie, especially in the NFC East, with the Giants with their easy schedule, Washington's easy schedule, and heck, maybe Dak Prescott does come back in 4 weeks. I doubt it, but maybe he shows up with a bent finger tied to his index and he can throw a football. I doubt that's going to happen. And tell Jerry Jones that he's just absolutely insane, because he should be on the IR. It doesn't make any sense, but that's Jerry Jones for you.
We all know that the NFC East is like the Wild West, so it wouldn't surprise me. It seems like anything goes and anything can happen. So, never say never.
Has it been a repeat champion since the Eagles 03 and 04, I think it was. So, yeah.
Well, Jerry Jones likes to show everybody his his plans, including how he drafts and everything else. So might as well give everybody an inside look of what Dak Prescott's going to be when he comes back with his bent thumb or whatever the heck he's going to call it, because he believes he's coming back in 4 weeks. I don't know what doctor would think that, but again, Jerry Jones is the doctor. He's the king. He's the know-it-all. So there you go.
We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out in the coming months.
Maybe Tua could train him how to throw lefty.
Maybe we'll have our next guest, RJ, give us an explanation on what Jerry Jones has planned for Dak Prescott's return. Anyways, Andrew, thank you for joining us. You're awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing, guys. Have a great night.
Tell the fans, before you go, how they can find you on social media.
Oh, yeah. You can find me at DiCecco NFL, ADICECCO NFL on Twitter. And check out all my work on InsideTheBirds.com. I got fantasy coverage, doing, X Factor pieces leading into the game, sort of like a quasi-scouting report each week. And then, of course, a story coming off the game. And there's so much great content. Podcasts from NFL insiders, Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Pre-game show that they have with Greg Cosell, and there's just so many different things. You have to check it all out. InsideTheBirds.com has everything. It's your one-stop shop for all things Eagles.
Well, I'll tell you this. We've had a couple of Eagles guys on our show, and you, my friend, are good with your words, and not only that, you have the inside scoop on everything with the Eagles. So if you love the Eagles, you follow the Eagles, check him out, Andrew DiCecco. Thank you, Andrew.
Take care, guys.